Hey everyone, so today what we're going to do is we're going to unbox a cheap eBay katana. So a couple of weeks ago I released a video talking about not all Chinese katanas are trash, and I've said it and I put it out there, and so I thought best to lead by example. So here I have bought a relatively cheap Chinese katana, and I'll show you the eBay listing right there. And while it's pretty cheap, it's actually a little more expensive than it usually is because of COVID shipping. So normally then shipping from China for these swords costs about $40 US dollars. But because of COVID, then they had to add on about $55 US dollars on top of that. So it's quite expensive in comparison to the overall price. It's about a fifth or a sixth added just for shipping that wouldn't have been added before. But that's what it is with the world as it is today. So here we have an eBay katana that I bought for about 360 AUD, and I'll pop up a US dollar conversion. So a little bit of backstory about why I bought this katana. So I have a white katana that you've seen me sharpen from being a blunt katana to being a sharp katana, but I've actually started training at a new sword school, and for safety reasons they wanted me to have a blunt sword. So I took this blunt katana that I've sharpened to a sharp katana and I blunted it again to become a blunt katana. And so the only sword I've actually got that's full size cut with is my Korean bilongum, which costs about $4,500. So while it cuts beautifully, then it's a very scary sword to cut with, because if I make a mistake and I damage the sword, it's a very, very costly mistake. And so just to soothe my heart and also to have a budget sword to train with, then I bought this new katana. And so I've got one that's pretty middle end. It's not particularly expensive, but it's also not particularly cheap because I do want it to be a good training sword. So we're going to have a look at it today, and I'm going to run you through how I inspect swords when I first get them, and a few tests that I do on them to see if they're up to the quality standards that I want. So first things first, let's get to unboxing. Alrighty, so I've actually decided to name this sword Aranami, and Aranami in Japanese means rough waves, and it's precisely because of all the koshirae. They're wave themed, and it's a name that just jumped out to me, and I quite liked it, and I thought it fit the feeling of the sword quite well. So we've got brass fittings all the way through, from the kashira, the fuchi, the tsuba, they're all brass, and the manuki, I'm pretty sure they're also brass. Now the wrapping it's quite tight, it's quite firm, and it's got nice width to it, so it really does stick out quite a bit, so that it fits in the hand quite nicely. Wrapping is quite tight. So let's have a look at the actual blade itself. So they've got the classic Chinese sword plastic sleeve with oil in it. So let's take this off. So originally it didn't come with a bohi, and I asked them to add a bohi because I wanted to have one, and they did it free for me actually, and they did a fantastic job. It's really nicely ground in, really nice end towards the kisaki. And it's quite a nice taper here, so I quite like how it looks, and it's got this beautiful flamey hamon, a really nice choji pattern. So I'll bring you closer so you can have a look at it. So I hope you can see the hamon. You'll have to forgive my bad camera and my even worse videography, but if you can see that, then you can see it's this beautiful flamey pattern that works really well with the wave theme. The other thing I've completely forgotten to mention is this is a really nice rosewood saya. Rosewood all the way through. We've got a nice buffalo horn koiguchi, but no kojiri really. I think it's just more rosewood that they've done, and they've made a butt cap for it and they've stuck it on. But it's a really nice, it's quite a hefty sheath actually, and it looks fantastic. I love the look of the rosewood. It's just this really nice open grain that's been finished with a nice satin finish. So there's a little bit of rattle, but it is tight, not really. So there's a little bit of rattle, and it's a little bit loose in the fit of the habaki to the saya, but it's a pretty cheap sword, so in terms of that, we can shim it and we can fix that quite easily. Now, about the blade itself. The blade is a 1095 clay tempered mono steel blade, and it's actually quite light. So a few things that I do when I first get a sword. I've got 4 tests. The first is straightness. So this sword is straight. There's no bends to it. And the reason why it's the first test is because if that goes wrong, the sword is not going to be great. So this is nice and straight. There's no warp to it, there's no bend to it, so we know that this is past the first test. Second test is point of balance. That's actually rather interesting because the point of balance on this sword is pretty close to the handle. So it's actually a lot closer than I was expecting, especially for Chinese builds. So we'll see how that handles, but I'm actually quite happy with it. Because sometimes you have these ridiculously fat blades on Chinese handles, and the point of balance is out here, and it's very hard to maneuver. It's just not fantastic. Now the third test is fit and finish. So everything seems rather tight. We've got 2 Mikugi pins. The transition from the Sukaito to the Fuji is actually quite nice. That's a really nice smooth transition, no bits jutting out. However, at the Kashira end, it's over just by a millimeter really, but I mean that's fine. That's not really a problem. And the habaki fits quite nicely. No rattle, nothing really loose. The only thing that could be improved is the fit to the saya and the habaki. So we'll probably have to shim that because I'm not that fond of loose habaki and saya fits because it means swords fall out. So after that, then I try and feel how it feels in the hand, just like this, and the weight of it, and where it really wants to cut, and if it's not a very maneuverable sword. Now this one is actually quite light, and it feels really maneuverable. I quite like how it weighs and how it moves in the hand. So I'll stand up and I'll do some of that. And the final test is just a brief sharpness test, and my gosh, this has a nice edge. I can feel the bite in my fingers when I run my fingers over. There's a really nice bite to it, and I'm pretty sure it'll have a fantastic edge. So it's pretty late in the afternoon. I've just come back from work. I've still got to cook dinner. So I'll do the rest of this filming in a little bit, and I'm going to go and cut some pool noodles with it like I normally do so you can see how it works, as well as just maneuver it in the air and see how it handles. Alrighty, so I hope you liked that. It felt fantastic to cut with, extremely sharp edge, really nice and maneuverable, very light in the hands as well, so it was really a pleasure to deal with. So I'm very happy with this purchase, and I hope you liked watching it. So in terms of this sword, as a $360 sword, AUD, US dollar conversion up there, then this is a fantastic sword. It looks beautiful, it weighs quite nicely, the balance is really close to the handle, but it's still very maneuverable, quite light, and the sharpness is fantastic. So I'm very happy with this. The polish on this is great, except for probably the Kisaki. Kisaki could probably do with a touch of improvement with the polish. So I bought this from an eBay seller called Ninjakatana, and honestly, when I saw the name, I had some doubts because the name just seemed so dodgy, so not like a professional seller. But I sent him a few messages because he was one of the few people who was still shipping to Australia despite COVID. And so I sent some messages back and forth, and I just asked him about his products, asked him about his swords, and I asked him if he could add the bohi as well as the long sagyo, and he said he could do it free of charge. So I figured we'll give him a go, we'll see what it's like. And honestly, I'm really pleased with the end product. It's a fantastic product that we've got here. Really nice sword, really nice fit and finish, looks amazing, feels great, and for the price, there's really no complaints. I mean, the fit to the saya could be improved, but in this price range, it's just about expected. So I hope this backs up my stance that Chinese katanas are pretty good value for what you get. Now, there still is a possibility that you don't get what you were hoping for because, you got scammed essentially, but for what you do get, the price to value is fantastic if you know what you're looking for. So with that, I'll see you next time.